Hi everyone, Stephen here at Teach Me Music, and today we're going to be talking about how to use a metronome, why it's important to use a metronome, and a few things to look out for. So a metronome is something that you may have heard about before, and it's basically a clock or a ticking clock that keeps musicians in time, and it gives you a certain speed to play at. Imagine that you're watching the clock tick round. Obviously each click of a normal clock is a second. Well, a metronome basically allows you to alter that. It allows you to change how many times it's going to click, light up, or make a noise, which I'll show you in a minute. And it allows you to do that and change how many times it does it in a minute. And that's why we call it BPM. BPM is what we measure a metronome in, and it stands for beats per minute. So every time a metronome makes a sound, that is a beat. If it does 120 BPM, that's basically 2 clicks every second. If you set it at 60 BPM, that is obviously a beat per second, because 60 beats per minute, obviously there's 60 seconds in a minute. So it's just something that allows us to change the speed, whether it's really slow, in the middle, or really fast. So we're going to show you an app which is called the Soundbrenner, and it's basically a free app that you can get on your phone. And the best thing about it is it also connects with the Soundbrenner Core, which is the watch that I've currently got on my wrist. And it's really, really visual, because not only does it make a sound, but it lights up as well. And I'm going to show you how to use this app so you can control the metronome. You can set it to whatever it needs to be. And a metronome is something you should use because it's going to give you really good time. A lot of musicians can play and keep time on their own, but then when they gig, record, play with a drummer, play with another musician, it all goes out the window. And the reason for that is because they've got good internal time, but they can't do it to somebody else, or they can't keep track, or they can't keep consistent. So a metronome is something that's going to keep you nice and consistent, playing in time, and timing is a really big factor in being a bass player. And it's basically called groove. If you can't groove, you're not going to be able to play bass. So let me show you what a metronome looks like in terms of the Soundbrenner, and let's see how we use it. So this is the Soundbrenner app. You'll see that it's got 4 kind of grid looking things across the top, and it's basically almost like a 3-tiered system where there's 3 blocks and there's 4 of them. This is what the app loads as a preset. Each block that you color in basically makes the sound louder or more aggressive. So if you color all 3 blocks like I have at the very left, that's going to be a really loud sound. It's going to be like a very, very piercing sound. Not completely ear deafening, so you don't need to worry about your hearing. It's just going to be a very, very sharp sound. If you've got 2 blocks colored in, it's a slightly milder or weaker sound. And if you've got 1, it's obviously the weakest or the mildest. And if you have 0, it doesn't make a sound at all. And this allows you to basically accent, which means to make louder and to give more emphasis to the metronome. I'm going to show you all of them so you can see my watch light up as well, just in case you want to get a Soundbrenner Core. But when you start off, I recommend having all 4 of them colored in the 3-tier system. So make sure each grid has 3 lit up. And that's going to allow you to lock into the metronome a lot easier, because using a metronome to start with is actually quite difficult. So all I want you to do, and I'll show you how to use this now, is set it at 60 BPM, which we'll say somewhere in the middle, 60 BPM. And then I want you to press play, and I'll show you what happens with the watch as well. And I want you to try and just get used to hearing the click, which is what the metronome does. So I'm going to press play now, and you should see the watch light up as well. So what you should have seen there is obviously this lighting up red, which is the 3, yellow, which is the 2, and green, which is the 1. It also vibrates against my wrist, which actually gives me a lot more consistency with a metronome and with the timing. This is really important for you regardless of what style you play, regardless of how good you want to be. You don't need to practice to a metronome every single time you practice, but if you can keep it consistent, you're going to improve more, you're going to improve faster, which is always a good thing, and you're just going to have better timing. So if you turn the dial up and you get a higher number, that's going to click faster because it's how many beats or clicks you hear in a minute. And if you turn the dial down, so you've got a lower number, that's obviously going to be slower. So I want you to just get the metronome. It's free to download. Click play at 60 BPM. Make sure you've got all three lit up at the top, and then just try and get used to tapping your foot along with it. And this is the hardest part. You want to tap your foot or clap or make a sound, but you want to try and get it as perfect as possible. So when this makes a sound, you make a sound or do something perfectly in time with it as well. You can what we call rush or push, and rushing basically means that you're doing it just before, and if you're pushing or pulling, then it means that you're doing just after. You want it to be perfectly bang on, and that does take time. So this is how to use a metronome. We're not talking about rhythm, just in case rhythm is something you know about. Rhythm is what we're going to talk about in a separate video, and when we play a song or a bass line on bass, obviously, we change the rhythm, we don't change the metronome. So you may have heard of another word called tempo, and tempo is how fast a song is, and that is the BPM. So if I was playing a song at 90 BPM, the tempo of the song is 90 BPM. But I can change the rhythm of the notes I'm playing, which is why we have faster parts and slower parts. So just get used to hearing the metronome, and when you're ready, I'll see you obviously in another video, and definitely check out the basic rhythm, because a metronome and rhythm go perfectly together to make you a better bass player. So when you're ready and the metronome makes sense, I'll see you in the next video.